Focus from Rwanda to Kenya, where at least one person was killed in renewed anti-government protests across Kenya on Tuesday. Kenya's police clashed with demonstrators who are demanding the resignation of President William Ruto. In Kitengela, which is on the outskirts of the capital Nairobi, police fired repeatedly at hundreds of protesters. In Nairobi city centre, police fired tear gas at several dozen protesters. Youth-led nationwide protests broke out a month ago against proposed tax hikes. These protests have continued even after President Ruto withdrew 2.7 billion in tax hikes on June 26 and sacked nearly his entire cabinet. According to the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, at least 50 people have been killed in the protests till date. Isabel Nakiria from Kampala joins us on the latest as far as Kenya protests are concerned. What is the situation on ground? It doesn't really look good. And despite President Ruto conceding to demands a month ago and withdrawing a huge chunk of tax hikes, it seems that the tension continues to simmer. So is this basically about him vacating the position of power and stepping down?
Practically, that would be the answer to your question.
Okay.
Of course, today there was another day of protests, running battles between the police and the protesters. Protesters are demanding for good governance and democracy in Kenya, and of course the withdrawal of President Ruto as presidency. But we have seen on the streets a brutal force that has come out today to fire tear gas at protesters and lobby, lobby tear gas and lobby
tear gas
protesters.
Yeah.
We understand that some people were shot dead. We still do not know the confirmed number of people who are dead, but many people were arrested. We are told that some were abducted, which human rights bodies have condemned.
Okay.
We also hear that some journalists were shot at. A journalist from a local TV, K24, was shot in the thigh, and by the time she was whisked off to the hospital, the bullet was still lodged in her thigh.
Oh my
and
God. Okay.
We also understand that some masked people came out on the streets with clubs to try and disperse off protesters, but they got resistance from the protesters who disarmed them and forced them to frog jump to a nearest public space, and they were ordered to leave the city center. We also hear that some tear gas was lobbied into a hospital, and some school children were seen running into a school van while covering their noses. Police also stormed a religious facility where people had sought refuge and tried to beat them out and force them out of the church. Okay. But we were told that the people who were arrested were also, the protesters tried to, storm that facility, police station, and try to set them free, but they were forced out by the tear gas.
So, Isabel, what we understand from your report and the visuals is an absolute anarchy on the streets. And we haven't, have we heard anything from President Ruto? What is his plan to contain this situation, which seems to be as of now spiraling out of control? And I think there has to be some credibility that the government needs to take, because you mentioned more than 50 lives have been lost, and the kidnappings and the way people are apprehended or arrested reportedly.
For now, we haven't had any news from the presidency. President Ruto has not yet made any statement, but from the brutality of the force that came out today, we do think that the president has ordered the police to come out in full force and try to stop the protests. From the side of people masked, holding clubs and trying to disperse of protesters on the streets, we think that President Ruto this time is coming out with brutal force to try and stop these protests and not escalate like it was before. And we also know that some people have been arrested. We do not know how many so far, and there have not been any confirmed reports of deaths as yet, but we saw people lying on the streets with blood coming out of their heads or bodies, and were taken away, and some emergency help was being administered to some of the people who were shot on the street. President Ruto has, at a rally, he said that he accused the Ford Foundation of you know, funding the protests in Kenya, and the Ford Foundation came out and said that they were not behind this protest, all they do is fund grants in Kenya. We know that they were behind the climate conference last year in Kenya, and they say they are very, they do not fund any protests.
Right, we'll have to see how this situation pans out in the next 48 hours, considering that President Ruto has sacked nearly his entire cabinet and the situation absolutely looking bad. Thank you very much, Isabel, for joining us live from Kampala, and please do take care of yourself. Thank you.